Michael Borky and Brian Haydad with you again. We got Scott Foxhall with us right now, pitching coach at Mississippi State. And before I get out of the way and let Haydad go, I've been thinking about this on the way here, and it's a trend you see sometimes in sports where a player has a great contract year, gets his big fat deal, and then production falls off. Or a team wins a Super Bowl, wins an NBA championship, wins a World Series, and the next year production drops off. Has that been something that you guys have had to battle internally where guys either didn't approach the offseason the same way or had that mentality of, hey, we won, so we're just going to hang out for a little while and not take it as seriously? Has that been something that you guys have battled, or have you approached that a different way because of the success you've had last season? Have you felt any of that inside of your dugout?
Absolutely not. I feel like we got great leadership with Coach Lamonis. We got great leadership in the locker room with our players, and those guys are not letting that happen. Hadn't felt that at all. Our message has been that we're attacking this season, and we're trying to be out of the defend mindset, that we're not defending anything, we're attacking the future. And we got the leaders in the locker room, from Landon Sims to Logan Tanner, Cam James, those guys that have been through the battles. They're not letting that happen. So I don't anticipate that being any issue. It hadn't been an issue up to this point, Michael.
You announced your starting rotation today. We'll come back to Landon because everybody wants to talk about him. But Casey Hunt on Saturday, Cade Smith on Sunday. Tell us a little bit more about those guys, what we should expect to see from them at the front of the rotation.
Well, we had the preseason was some fierce battles to try to decide who to start. And really, we feel like we're very fortunate in this program that we have 6 or 8 guys that could start on the weekend for us. And those guys all battled it out in the fall and the preseason. We feel like going into this weekend, Casey and Cade and Landon were the 3 that earned it. And they give us the best chance to win as starters this weekend. But we have a lot of really good options, and baseball people understand that the way it starts is usually not the way it finishes. So I know our guys are going to keep competing amongst themselves the whole year, but what Casey and Cade have done to separate themselves were just some stellar outings in the preseason. Casey's velocity's a little up from what it's been. He's throwing a little harder. He's harnessed his breaking balls. That's kind of been what has gotten him in the past is just not having the best command with his secondary stuff. But he's really pitching at a high level with all of his pitches. He's going to throw a curveball and a slider, and he has a good changeup. We trust him on Saturday. Cade has a really good slider and a really good changeup. And he's got the analytic fastball that gets a lot of swings and misses. So we feel like he can pitch off his fastball and get weak contact early in the count, swings and misses when he needs it. Both of those guys are really good athletes, control the running game, do the other things that you have to do to manage the game as a starting pitcher. So happy for both of those guys. And they know they're getting pushed by the other ones. And when they hand the ball off to the next guy, they're going to feel good that we have a lot of capable pitchers on our staff. And then everybody knows about Landon on Friday night. We feel really good about him getting the weekends off getting off on the right foot every weekend with Landon going on Friday night.
What's more difficult for Landon? Was it mentally going from closer to starter, or physically?
I think the jury's out on that. We'll see on this journey, but I trust him, and our team trusts him, and he's going to figure it out. I know it's going to be a little bit different for him. We've just talked about, when you're a closer, the game's on the line with every pitch. When you're a starting pitcher, you still have to have the close mentality. You close innings. You just close each inning. But sometimes you don't have to have quite as much adrenaline as a starting pitcher. The game's not on the line with every single pitch. So that'll be something that Landon has to figure out mentally, how to have good self-talk as a starter, because his self-talk as a closer was he's pitching with his hair on fire, and the game's on the line with every pitch. And so that'll be a little bit of an adjustment. But, again, I trust Landon. It is A-plus makeup and just an alpha male, and he is going to attack this challenge as a starting pitcher.
We talked to Coach Lamonis a couple weeks ago, and he said, last year's pitching depth is something that you can't count on. It's just something special. This year, he said normal pitching depth, but it's still Mississippi State pitching depth, talented pitching depth. How confident are you in those bullpen guys? Because I expect, week one, I know you're going to have guys on pitch counts. You're probably going to see a lot of different guys out of the bullpen this weekend.
We are, and that's done on purpose. The tough schedule early and playing the number of games that we do in midweek. We're gonna test our pitching depth and try to get a lot of guys a lot of opportunities.
Worked last year.
It does. It did last year. You're right. We think it's a formula that Lim and I have had in throughout our coaching career. So this is a different group. We know what they're capable of doing through fall practice and through the preseason, and we know their abilities, we know their stuff. The wild cards are always when the lights come on, and it's a little bit more of a wild card when you're playing in this monster that we call Duty Noble, and in front of our fan base, and in the atmospheres that these guys are going to pitch in front of, because it's a lot more about controlling your adrenaline and handling your nerves, and just a lot of different things that are different at Mississippi State than at other programs around the country.
So we go to Friday. Landon Sims gives you, say, 6 solid innings. We go to the top of the ninth, and it's 5-3 Mississippi State. Well, Landon Sims isn't coming out of the bullpen. Who's getting the first crack at replacing Landon Sims as your closer?
Well, I think that we've talked to our staff, and Lim's, I think, spoke to this in some of his media, is that we're going to piggyback a lot of guys. So it might not be the traditional one-inning closer. It might be that Landon hands it off to somebody in the 6th inning, and that guy finishes the game. So just because we have had that fierce competition with these 6 or 8 guys for starting roles, and we've trained probably 6 or 8 guys to go 4 or 5 innings at this point in the season. So really, that's the way we trained Landon last year. I mean, the first game of the year against Texas, we handed the ball off to Landon in the 5th inning and said, "Go as long as you can, big boy." And that's when he struck out 10 in a row, and we got him out of there on pitch count, and the game was kind of in hand when we got him out of there. He might have finished that game. So he just – the season has a life of its own. Each game has a life of its own, and through the process, Landon evolved as kind of the 1 or 2 inning closer as the season progressed last year. But it didn't start that way. It kind of started the way we're going to start this year is maybe the first few games we're going to piggyback some guys and just see who handles the end of the game and see who handles being able to be a starter.
You've got some guys with some experience coming back. Preston Johnson. Stone Simmons is a guy you put in some big situations last year, and he was able to deliver. Who's a guy that, we're not talking about just right now at this second that you could see being a big innings guy for you this year?
Man, maybe the most improved guy on our staff is Parker Stinnett. He I think, showed his electricity last year in spurts and in some big moments. He had a big save against Kentucky here at home last year, and he closed out a regional game, I think, against VCU with maybe one of the best breaking balls I've seen in my career. I keep seeing it roll on the highlight films from last year. So he's become more consistent. He's a much better pitcher. He's one of those guys that's battling right now to see, how this rotation is going to take shape as we move through the season and into SEC play. So he's a guy that I think we're going to get a lot of productivity out of this year.
Should be very interesting because you've got the power arms, you've got some experience, you've got some young guys. You've got what it looks like on paper like a really good mix. I don't know if you know this or not, by the way, the way you manage your pitchers. It drives some people batty on the internet here. And I have to hear about it in my mentions all the time. So, I appreciate what you do. I just want to let you know there are some people who are just like, why can't this happen? And you know what? I say trust in the results is the way I would probably look at that.
Am I hearing a little sarcasm in your voice?
No, sir, you're not hearing any. Trust in the results that won a national championship
I got
last season. Scott